All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Q&A with Sir Anthony. Today is Friday, the 29th, the last day of January 2021. Wow, already the month is gone. One down, 11 to go. So welcome, and we are Restoration Fellowship is the name of the ministry, and this is our website, focusonthekingdom.org. Why focus on the kingdom? Because that's what Jesus focused on, and that's what he told his apostles to focus on. Preach the gospel to all the cities of Israel at that time, to all the Jews, and then it was extended to us lowly dogs, as he called us in a nice way, I guess. I don't know. So all right, this is the website, and if you'd like to join us for fellowship, Bible study, church Bible study as we call it, just go to this site and click on live stream, 10:30 a.m. So we are in the south of Atlanta, Georgia. So we are in New York time or Eastern Standard Time, 10:30 a.m. every morning. Usually Anthony does the sermonizing, and we have other teachers as well. We have youth lessons every Sunday now. So bring your kids to watch, and they can listen to the youth lessons. Okay, so also we have websites, many websites. By the way, the Theological Conference. As some of you know, it's 2021. We're still going through the pandemic that started more than a year ago now. Oops, sorry about this. Let me get this image back on the screen. So the Theological Conference, every year in the spring here in Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry, not sure what is happening here. Let me try again. Okay. All right, there's the countdown, May 27th. So we are still planning to have it physically here. Any updates, just check this website and we'll let you know, theologicalconference.org. But as you can see, there's plenty of time, 117 days. So God willing, this horrible pandemic that has affected so many, still affecting many. Actually, prayers for our little home church. We have a family here that has the COVID, and the family is very physically weak already. So we ask for your prayers. They're elderly as well, so please pray for our family here in our little home church. But yes, God willing, by that time, hopefully it will have subsided. We have thehumanjesus.org, and I'd like to invite you to a couple of events that is happening next month. So if you click on discussions, there you go. Next Friday, February the 5th at noon. So this is the only time my opponent, Trinitarian Michael Burgos, had the time. So he gave us the time. That's the only time he's available. I hope you can be on live. You can ask questions here on this website, thehumanjesus.org discussions. If you're on our normal church website, you can also watch there and ask questions. So again, noon, New York time, next Friday. Did the Son pre-exist eternally? So that'll be fun. And also KOGmissions.com, Tracy Z's ministry, who we partner with, fellowship with. And look at that. Sir Anthony Buzzard has a rare debate. So if you click there, so upcoming events, KOG.com, KOGmissions.com. If you click there, it'll take you to Tracy's Kingdom of God Ministry and Missions channel. And that's in 2 weeks, I believe. Yes, 2 weeks. So Sir Anthony doesn't usually debate. He's not a debater as such, but he's obviously a teacher. So he feels very passionate about this topic. Are Satan and demons personal beings? That is, individuals, selves. So there's a branch, unfortunately, of non-Trinitarians called Christadelphians who developed a non-personal devil Satan doctrine some time ago. So that's very unfortunate for us, non-Trinitarians. But Anthony feels passionate about this topic, as we all should feel, by the way. So Jesus believed in Satan and demons. He actually exorcised them. He actually overpowered them. So we should too. So this is very important. All right. So I will bring Sir Anthony up and we'll get straight to your questions. So we go through questions we get during the week, folks. If you have any questions, you're on the live chat. Go ahead and type them. Please keep them short and succinct. And but first, we'll get to some questions. Good evening, Anthony.
Yeah, you mentioned that I didn't do debating. I did a huge debate way back on the Trinity, but that was the main public one, I think I did. But I have done debating, less so now. But on this question, I'm ready to debate and say that the devil is an external, personal, fallen angel, certainly not human nature. We are not the devil. There's an external devil. That's the point I'll be making in that debate.
All right, thank you. So we'll get to the first question, Anthony. Let's see. Does preaching the gospel of the kingdom include healing for today? And that's according to the passage in Matthew 10. So let's have a quick look at that passage. So let me start in, let's see, verse 5. The ministry of the 12. Jesus sent out the 12 with the following instructions. Do not go onto the road of the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As ye go, preach this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely you give. So how do you...
Well, that's an interesting question. I would say that command to heal the sick and raise the dead was given expressly to those 12. And I'll note that there are people claiming to raise the dead, not very convincingly today. I believe, of course, that God can heal. We should anoint the sick when they are sick and pray for their healing. But I think we must recognize that Paul, in the latter part of his ministry, in Timothy, the last books that Paul wrote, you will find a very much less great influence on prophesying and signs and wonders. And I will add this: you cannot have the degree of miraculous power unless you're an apostle. The apostles are completely unique. You cannot be an apostle today. The apostles have the accrediting signs and wonders. And so I would hesitate to say that anybody can just claim to go out and preach the gospel and raise the dead. I don't think it's happening. The proof would be in the actual event. People are not raising the dead these days, but certainly God will heal within the limits of the dispensation in which we're living. And we're not living, I would argue, in apostolic days, and therefore particularly the tongues were a sign especially to mark that transition into the new time that we're living now. In other words, God allowed special, miraculous confirmation of the new thing in Jesus, but he doesn't have to go on confirming that forever. So I would say yes and no, rather ambiguously, to this question. If you can raise the dead, go for it. I don't think you can. But does God still heal? Yes, that's why we pray for the healing of people. But do not expect to work at an apostolic level of miracle, I would say, because you cannot be an apostle today in that sense.
All right. Let me do a follow-up, Anthony, if I could, to this question. In Mark's version of the Great Commission, which you would agree is for us today.
Yes, of course, yeah.
in his version in Mark 16, it says, "Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. Whoever does not believe will be condemned.
Yep.
These signs will accompany those who believe," and then
Yep.
there are those signs. So,
Yep.
okay, so you're saying in Matthew
Mm-hmm.
10, it's for the Jews only, the 12. But here, how would you explain this passage?
Well, first of all, as you know, this passage is not in every manuscript, so I wouldn't rely totally on it. And it doesn't say that all these signs will be evident until the end of the age, because if that was so, you would have to have apostolic people around to do these. I'm making a very clear distinction that apostles who cannot be reproduced today have distinct extra powers that you and I don't have. So, yes, there was some of that going on. You know, Paul had a miraculous experience with a snake that fell off his hand and so on. We know all that. But he doesn't make a blanket statement that every Christian has that sort of apostolic power. I don't think we can go out in faith hoping that we can speak foreign languages. They tried that. We cannot go out in faith hoping we're going to raise the dead. I don't think so. If God chooses to do that through you, that's fine. But it's very rash, I would argue, to claim to be at the apostolic level of gifts that's implied in that text. Okay.
Yeah, let me ask you this because we will probably get this question from our audience and some who might watch this later. By the way, you can watch this on our YouTube channel later. It's automatically uploaded. So let me ask you this for the sake of the audience. Are you a cessationist?
I'm not going to answer that question directly. If you're saying that God cannot and absolutely will not do a miracle ever, no, I'm not. I don't think Paul knew exactly when the tongues would cease. He did know that when we get to the second coming, when we see Jesus face to face, we won't have a need for any of that. I don't think Paul knew exactly when that would be. He knows about the second coming, and when that second coming happens, that's the end of all that supernatural knowledge. But Paul also recognized in his own letters a huge de-emphasis on prophecy, tongues, and miracles, and so on. He just talks about the teaching of Christ, which is until the second coming. But again, if you've got an Agabus who can predict accurately as a prophet, let him show it. I've not seen anything that comes near to that as evidence. If you've got somebody speaking foreign languages, which are being translated now, as Paul clearly said in 1 Corinthians 14:13, if you are claiming to have the tongues languages gift, you'd better be translating it, or somebody else had better be translating it, both options, so that we all know what God is saying. That doesn't seem to happen. When I say to people, all right, you're a tongue speaker, do you translate? No. Well, then they're in defiance of that very clear command in 1 Corinthians 14:13. Make that the test. We must match the present experience with the laws and principles of the Bible. I don't think charismatic tongue speakers are doing that when it comes to either translating yourself or having somebody else with the gift of translation, as Paul saw it. I don't hear somebody with the gift of translation translating. What I do hear is people doing only self-translating. Well, that's not right. That's not quite the biblical model, so it makes me a little bit suspicious.
All right, thank you. We will move on. I'm hesitant to purchase your Bible translation because of my experience with the New World Translation. That's the one published by the organization, the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So can you ease my mind on how your translation is trustworthy?
That's an interesting question. I love these frank questions. First of all, then, the answer is I'm not a JW. I have never been a Jehovah's Witness, am not a Jehovah's Witness, so it's very unlikely that my translation would be like the JW translation. No translation is perfect. I would say that most translations, 98% of them, are basically right. But there are 2%, 3% of text where there's a real problem. I come at this as a biblical Unitarian, Jehovah's Witnesses were never biblical Unitarians. They were binitarians, or rather, they believed that Michael, the archangel, was the pre-existing Jesus. I don't believe a word of that. So my whole approach is from a different framework than the New World Translation. You have to assess that for yourself. Give it a shot. It's not perfect. There are mistakes in my translation. There are ways to say things better. But I think particularly in the notes, the commentary that I give underneath, you'll have a clear line on God being one person, on Jesus being the human Messiah, and the gospel, and I stress this, the gospel being not just Jesus died and rose, the gospel being first and foremost what Jesus said it was in Mark 1. You'll find that emphasis massively. If you like that, then you're going to enjoy that translation. If you find it wrong, please write to me and point out where you think it should be corrected. We'll certainly want to listen. Okay.
Yes, and here is the translation. If anyone is interested, Amazon, the One God, the Father, One Messiah, One Man Messiah translation. And this is the second edition. Why, Anthony?
Second edition because there were things that I thought could be done better, and much of it is similar. The best part from one of the best parts, apart from the text, the scriptural text itself, would be the introduction, where I've got quotations supporting our points of view. Remarkable quotations showing that the faith went wrong under the influence of Greek philosophy. So what you're getting often in church doesn't reflect accurately what Jesus and the apostles believed. That's not a novel idea of mine. I didn't make that up. There's a massive material, mostly not read by the public very much. So I'm trying to popularize that very famous idea amongst scholars, because scholars do have good things to say. Not defending everything a scholar does. Sometimes scholars are pure unbelievers, by the way. They don't believe a word of what they find, but technically they can still be quite valuable as commentators for us. Okay, that's all I want to say on that.
Are you there? Sorry.
For a while. No, I lost you.
Okay. How do you define dispensationalism and covenant theology, and what does the Bible teach about it?
It's a good question. Dispensationalism for me is a very dangerous word. Dispensationalism with a capital D fundamentally says that the gospel of the kingdom taught by Jesus is not the gospel for us today. The theory says that the gospel for us today is the gospel of the grace of God and not the gospel of the kingdom. I repeat, the theory says the gospel of the kingdom was preached by Jesus to Jews only, and that gospel was replaced by what they call the gospel of grace, which is for everybody since that time. I think that is fundamentally wrong, false, because if you are avoiding the teachings of Jesus, then you're in great trouble, according to 1 Timothy 6:3, which says if somebody doesn't have the teachings of Jesus, watch out, you're being scammed. So that's dispensationalism at its worst. It includes also the idea of a pre-Great Tribulation rapture. In other words, they teach that Jesus will come back twice, once secretly to take the church out of it for 3.5 years, and then come again visibly at the end of that 3.5 years. Yes, I believe in the 3.5 years in the future. That's classical futurism. I believe in a future great tribulation, but not in two different gospels. So that's dispensationalism. Covenant theology is a little bit harder to define. I actually looked it up on the web just now, and basically it would be associated with Calvinism, but it simply says, let's study the covenants. You can't object to that. By all means, let's study the covenants and realize the difference between the two. The covenant given to Moses is absolutely not the same as the covenant taught by Jesus. So let's make this point as clearly as we can. The law of Moses in the letter was for Israel until Jesus came. Jesus came then and began introducing the words of the new covenant, what we'll call the Torah of Messiah. And the Torah of Messiah, which is the Torah in the Spirit, is absolutely never to be confused with the Torah of Moses. If, for instance, you say that Jesus had to keep the law of Moses and the letter perfectly, you're simply wrong. Very dangerous, because you're actually rejecting Jesus. You're putting him back into the old covenant. You don't want to do that. You want to embrace the new covenant words of the new Torah of Jesus, which is given us in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Acts, and the whole of the New Testament. So that distinction between the old covenant and the letter, covenant of Moses, and the new covenant in the Spirit of Messiah, the Spirit of the Torah of Messiah, that is to be distinguished as Luke 16:16 does so well, where it tells you that the old system was until John the Baptist, really. And when John the Baptist came introducing Messiah, then the gospel of the kingdom is preached. I'll finish with this. In Acts 20, verse 24 and 25, all problems are solved. In Acts 20, Paul summarizes his own ministry, and he says, I went about preaching the gospel of the grace of God. That's in Acts 20, verse 24. And in the very next verse, he defines what that is. And now I know that none of you among whom I went about preaching the gospel of the kingdom. I get it. The gospel of the kingdom is the same as the gospel of grace. Don't ever put those in juxtaposition or contradiction of each other. Again, Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:20, he's willing to go under the law if it'll help win Jews. He'll keep the Sabbath with a Jew if that will help make friends with a Jew and get him converted to Christianity. But I, Paul, he said of himself, who am a Jew, I, Paul, am not, I repeat, not under the law of Moses. Paul was a Jew. Paul was a Christian. He was not under the law of Moses. Of course not. He was in the new covenant, which are the words and the teachings of Jesus and the apostles. So I hope that helps.
All right. Thank you. We shall continue here. Let's see. What did Jesus mean in John 21, verses 22 and 23? And let's have a look at that passage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the post-resurrection Jesus, and he meets up with some of the apostles. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper to ask, Lord, who is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he asked, Lord, what about him? Jesus said, if I want him to remain until I return, what is that to you? You follow me. Because of this, the rumor spread among the brothers that this disciple would not die. However, Jesus did not say that he would not die, but only, if I want him to remain until I return, what is that to you? So
good. That's a very interesting question. I'm going to read you a brief paragraph from a famous commentary on John by Leon Morris, and it goes as follows. He says that Jesus was asked this question about when the second coming is going to happen. Even if Jesus wills that Peter remains until the second coming, what is that to you? Jesus said. And Leon Morris says, the question from Jesus is an emphatic way of reminding the impulsive leader of the apostolic band that there are some things which are quite outside his province, should I say, beyond his pay grade. Don't worry about that. You get on, follow me. Don't bother about such questions. In fact, Jesus had not said anything about Peter actually surviving to the second coming. So leave that alone. Jesus was a very direct teacher. He put Peter in his place there and said, you get on with the job and don't worry about silly questions like that.
All right. And so shall we then.
Yeah, okay,
let's get on with it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. You said, and this was last Sunday, I believe.
Okay.
You said David was. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah. I said David was a Christian.
Yeah, good.
And Jesus was Christian, and we agreed. So the question is, but weren't both of these men Hebrews?
Well, of course they were Hebrews. They were Jewish by blood, by nationality. We know that. Was David a Christian? Absolutely. I'll tell you why. When you see, I'm quoting the words of Jesus now. Jesus said, when you see the kingdom coming, when you see Abraham, let me get this right. When you see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in that future kingdom and yourself being rejected, please note who's going to be in the future kingdom: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the prophets. Well, guess what? David was a prophet, so it's included in that. So these are Christians before Christ, if you like. Abraham is the father of the faithful. He believed God on the land promise, and it was counted to make Abraham right. David believed the same things. He was a prophet. He'll be in the kingdom. Was Jesus a Hebrew? Of course he was. Was he a Christian? That's an interesting question. If we're following Jesus, then if we're Christians, we'd better be following Jesus. The fascinating question is this: are we really following Jesus if we don't have the same creed as him, the Shema? If we don't have the gospel about the kingdom clear, as Jesus did, then perhaps we're not doing very well following Jesus, and we'd better become more Jewish, more Hebrew, and thus follow our Jewish rabbi and Lord Jesus accurately. So that's a hugely interesting question. Think about that.
Yep. Let's see. Let's continue here.
Mm,
So again, if you have any questions, type them in if you're on live chat,
yeah.
and we go through the questions we get during the week.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Let's go to this one, Anthony. Where do you believe the location of the
Yeah.
Millennium Temple will be if the Wailing Wall, the current
Oh,
so-called Wailing Wall, is
yeah.
not part of the main
Yeah.
of the temple?
Well, it's agreed by archaeologists. I'm not an expert archaeologist that the temple that was destroyed in AD 70 is not on the site of where the Arab mosque is now. That would mean you could have a new temple this side of the second coming without having to invade or disrupt things at the mosque. But I would think that the millennial, if he means the millennial temple, the one going to be built when Christ comes back, described in Ezekiel 40, I would think it would be where the original temple was. I don't know that for sure. I don't know. Perhaps he has an answer for us. But the Wailing Wall is probably not where the original temple was. So it would not be there. I think it would be where the original temple was, which is not where the Wailing Wall was. That's what I'm thinking. But let's see if our audience can help us out with that further.
Yeah, I've heard, Anthony. I'm not an
Yeah.
archaeologist either, but I've read and heard that this wall
Mm.
was actually. Oops, sorry.
Mm.
Hold on. Was actually not even part of the temple. It was
Right.
a sort of retainer wall, I've heard.
Yes.
So it's not even actually somehow connected to the main temple. I don't.
That's right. It's not. It was thought to be for a long time where
Right.
the temple was in AD 70. That apparently is not the case. The real temple was not on the site where the Wailing Wall is now. That's fine. My suspicion will be that in the millennium, when they build a new temple, when Christ is back here, it will be located where the original temple was, I would think. But I don't know. Let's see if we have more clarity on that from our audience.
Well, one thing is for sure, Anthony. It's not Rome, and
Certainly not Rome.
it's not what's the Missouri. I think the
Not
Mormons
Missouri.
have
No, no,
Jesus. I think the Mormons have Jesus descending in
absolutely.
Missouri, sorry, somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's definitely Jerusalem
Well, the Middle
proper.
East is the scene. You're right, because the final bad guy, the Antichrist, the Antichristos, there's a single Antichrist, and there were already many anti-Christian false prophets in the time of John. We know both things are true. That anti-Christian final bad guy of the end time will be in the Middle East, not, I think, Rome. Rome has nothing to do with it. Rome is not the same geographical arena as the first three kingdoms in Daniel. The whole thing is a Middle Eastern affair, so I would expect the Antichrist to arise in Iraq, Iran, Russia, that part of the world, one of those areas, but certainly not, I think, Rome.
All right. Thank you. Very interesting subject, this one, by the
It is.
way. You can
Yeah.
make it your career, your life's work.
Yeah.
So much to, I love archaeology,
Yeah.
and it's a lot to learn there. So
Yes.
let's continue
Uh-huh.
with the following question. Is it true Hebrew and Aramaic grammar
Mm.
employed the plural of majesty,
Mm.
also known as the plural of excellence?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. Whether you call it a plural of excellence or a plural of majesty, I'm not going to fuss about that. The fact is that you have plural words in Hebrew which have a singular meaning. Whatever you want to call that, it's a plural form of the word with a singular meaning. I want to state the facts for you. The facts are there in Genesis 42, verses 30 and 33. Genesis 42, verses 30 and 33. I would call this a plural of majesty, a plural of excellence, if you like. I'm not going to fuss about the terminology. People disagree, but there you will find the Lord of the land. There it is. Ha'ish Adonai et Adonai haaretz. Adonai, the Lords, plural actually, the Lords of the land. Who was that? Joseph. Was he more than one person? No. So there's your proof. That phenomenon of using a plural, intensive form, if you like, for a singular person is plainly there in that verse, and then in 33 also, Genesis 42:33. There it is. Goes up a little bit. The man, the Lord of the land. Okay, there he is. Ha'ish, the man. Adonai haaretz, lords of the land. Now, I'll give you another one, which is kind of fun. I discovered that today. In 1 Kings chapter 2, 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 3, we have it there. Wonderful. You're very good at finding these things here. Elisha is called, is that 1 Kings chapter 2? Yeah. Verse 3, 5, and 16. 3, verse 3, and verse 5 and 16. You'll find that Elisha is called your Lord. He's also in the plural, Elisha. My eye doesn't fall on it there. Ladonna, let's see. Yada et asher asali, Yoav ben asher asa lishne sarai tzvaot Yisrael. We should be finding Adonecha. I thought that was Second Kings. Are we in Second Kings? Oh, we're in First Kings.
Yeah,
Oh,
First Kings, Second Kings.
no,
Let's
Second Kings.
see.
Yes,
Second
Second Kings.
Kings
Ah,
2,
yes, that's
2,
better.
3.
Yes, good.
Let's see.
Second Kings 2:3. All
What's that?
right. That looks much better. Yes. Bnei HaNevi'im, the sons of the prophets, who were at Bethel. Elisha had said to him, do you not know that today Yahweh will take away your master, et Adonecha, your masters, plural. There it is. And the same thing in verse 5 and verse 16. It's plural. So Elisha is their masters. That's a plural of excellence, if you like, a plural of intensity, a plural of majesty. I don't care what you call it, but the fact is it's a fact. Also, I'll add that panim, faces, is plural in Hebrew, faces, F-A-C-E-S, and also the word mayim, waters, are used as plural forms. This goes for Elohim then, which is certainly a plural form, but singular in meaning. It's the singular is Eloah, and the plural is Elohim, and that's a plural ending, certainly not to be translated as gods, unless the context tells you otherwise. If you're talking about pagan gods, that would be fine, plural. But when you're talking about the one God, he absolutely isn't plural. So the answer is yes, Hebrew and Aramaic grammar do have a plural of intensity, a plural of excellence, a plural of majesty, whatever you want to
Um,
call it.
Anthony, how do you say this Hebrew word? Adonicha?
Adonecha.
Adonecha.
Yes.
Okay.
Adonecha. Ha.
Ha. Now there's another one,
Yeah.
Adonayik.
Yeah.
Adonai.
Adonai. Yes, that's a feminine form. That's speaking about
So
your
this
as a
is
feminine. Yeah,
right.
feminine.
This is applied to the Messianic king in Psalm 45.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
there's another example of a plural form,
Yes.
but
Right.
singular in meaning. Is that what
Yes,
you're
it is singular meaning, certainly. And God is also called by that same word, Adonai, over there in, what was it, in Isaiah, wasn't it? We found it in Isaiah. There it's called Yahweh. So your Lord, plural lords, can either be Yahweh, and on other occasions in the context in Psalm 45, it's the king. Not so difficult, actually. Same word. The difference is the your there. The your refers to a feminine person, the bride's husband, or the bride of Israel. Israel, meaning the bride of God, God's bride, Israel, or the bride who is the one to be married to the Messiah.
Did you also mention
Mm.
Adonim?
Well, Adoni, of course, is even more important. Adoni, and we have Adoni right there in the verse where you just were, verse 19 of Second Kings. If you go back to Second Kings 2, in verse 19, Second Kings 2. Ah, there it is. You got it. Well done. And so we've got my Lord, Adoni. Notice the little L on Lord there. Adoni. The difference is the vowel point under the N on the left-hand side of that word there. Adoni. 195 times that word Adoni means not deity, not God. And guess what? In Psalm 110:1, which is the most famously quoted passage in the whole of the Old Testament as a passage, the word for the second Lord is, guess what? Adoni. That's Yahweh speaks to my Lord. Adoni, non-deity. That shows that Jesus is not deity. The word there is not Adonai, which would be God, 450 times. The word there that Carlos has plainly on the screen for us, Adoni, my Lord, correct. No big L. There should not be a big capital L in Psalm 110:1, the second Lord. It should be lowercase. But they're not telling you that because they want you to think that Jesus is deity. That's not right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay?
Very interesting
Mhm.
languages,
Yes,
isn't it? To
that's
learn
just
other
fun.
languages is
Yep.
good, especially
Yeah.
the biblical languages. But also, Anthony, it's so far removed from 21st century
Yes.
Western society. So you're not only dealing with issues regarding a different language, but a different culture. I mean, 2000
Absolutely.
plus years. So different ways of
Absolutely.
speaking, different idioms, and so on. So,
Yep.
all right, let's move on
Good.
to questions we
Yeah.
get online. So
Yeah.
that was questions we get during the week.
Yep.
All right, I think there's a correction here. I am getting a message.
Yes.
Correction. You
Mm.
said JWs are binitarian, apparently.
Yes, that's not quite right. I thank you for that correction. They believe that the pre-existing or the pre-human Jesus was Michael, the archangel. Binitarianism would be two gods, two co-equal gods. So that's a good correction. They are Arians in the sense that they believe that the pre-human Jesus was not God, but he was an angel. So that's right. They are not strictly binitarians. That would be two gods in the God family, as taught by Herbert Armstrong. They are Arians. They believe in Jesus pre-existing as Michael.
Right. And
However, he couldn't be Michael. He couldn't be Michael.
sorry. And the word Arians is from Bishop Arius. If you want to
Yes,
explain that
right.
a little bit.
Well, Arius, yes, his idea was that the pre-existing second person could not be another god. That would be two gods. So his idea was that the Arians, and they taught this, the Arians taught that Jesus had a beginning as God, a begotten God sometime before his birth, so pre-human. They didn't say he was Michael the archangel. That came with the JWs. So Arianism is the idea of a second subordinate God of some sort. JWs became more express and more precise, and they said that second God was Michael, an angel. Cannot be Michael the archangel, because it says in Hebrews, to which of the angels did God ever say? Never, ever, ever did he say to the Son, you are my begotten Son. He never said that to Jesus. He never said it to an angel. Let me get this right. Sorry, let me be quite clear here. Jesus is the begotten Son of God. We know that. But that was never said to an angel. So if we have the text available in Hebrews there, to which of the angels did God ever say? Answer, no, he never did. To which of the angels did God ever, ever, ever say, you're my begotten Son? He did say that to Jesus. He never said it to an angel, and therefore Jesus could not possibly be an angel. I think I got that clear. There it is. To which of the angels did God ever say, you're my Son? Today I've become your father. I've begotten you. I've become your father as fathers become fathers of children in the womb of
Right.
the wife, right?
So angels are not begotten.
No, that's
Only
right.
human beings are begotten. No,
Yeah.
I sort of um, dislike the word begotten. It's so antiquated.
Yes, it is.
So King
Yes.
James.
Yeah.
I prefer procreated.
Yep.
And obviously, the only beings procreated are us, human
Yep.
beings. Angels are not procreated, and by that we
No.
mean in a womb, in the womb
That's
of a
right.
woman. So
Yep.
that's the great fallacy of the angel
Yep.
Jesus, which is
Yep.
shared, by the way, by Trinitarians who
Mm.
believe Jesus was the angel of the Lord, which
That's
is
true.
baffling. So
But not
anyway,
an angel.
yeah,
Not an angel.
it also destroys just the definition of words like
It
messenger,
does.
like angel. Like
That's right.
if you're the sender and you're called the messenger, that's
Yeah.
highly confusing to me. Anyway,
It is very
let's
confused. Yeah.
let's move on, Anthony. We have
Mm.
many questions. Thanks
Wow.
to everyone out there
Yep.
for sticking with us here. So let's go to the first one.
Yeah.
Who are the four living creatures of
Oh.
Ezekiel 1,
Mm.
and what is their purpose?
Well, they are there in the book of Revelation also. They appear to be four super angels. They're certainly not God. There's only one God. And they're found at the throne, surrounding the throne. There are 24 elders in Revelation and four living creatures. They're all super angelic beings. What else could you say? 28 of them altogether, 24 plus 4.
Yeah. So there are different it looks like
Cherubim.
there are different ranks as
Yes.
well. So
Yeah,
you
there may
have
be. Hmm.
archangels, you have
Yes.
just angels,
Hmm.
you have the angel of the Lord, which
Yep.
is like a specially designated messenger
Yep.
with special powers and
Yep.
authority. So yeah, you have different ranks, different forms,
Yes.
different types. So
Yes.
it's an interesting array
It is.
of an angelic council up there.
Can we call them cherubs, cherubim? These would be not God and not human, but they'd be
Hmm.
super angels. The number to remember is 28 in the book of Revelation. 24 elders and four living creatures. 28 super angelic persons. And they are not the ones who rule on the earth. In the King James, in Revelation 5, verse 10, is very corrupted from a very wrong manuscript version. The 24 elders are speaking of the church in Revelation 5, verse 10. They're not speaking of themselves. They're speaking of the church, us believers, and they, referring to the church, will be reigning upon the earth. So any JW that says that Jesus is not going to be on the earth is in defiance of that very easy text in Revelation 5, verse 10. That helps me a lot.
All righty, let's continue.
Yep.
Question online: Are there Unitarian Calvinists or Unitarians who believe in soteriology?
Well, soteriology is the theology of being saved. Calvinists, of course, believe in the theology of being saved. There were Unitarian Presbyterians. Yes, there were a number in England. I can't give you the names off the top of my head, but there were non-Trinitarian Calvinists, very few. But they all believed in soteriology, which is simply the science and study of how to get saved. Everybody believes in that. As far as Unitarianism is concerned, yes, there were some Presbyterian Calvinistic Unitarians, and they set up Unitarian churches in England. They didn't survive very long, I think.
All right, thank you. We
Yeah.
shall move ahead here.
Yeah.
Lori Jane, good
Oh,
evening,
yeah.
Lori. I
Mm.
just learned from a friend, they believe, by they, I think she means JWs, maybe,
Okay.
Lori. Jesus was begotten when he was resurrected. What are your thoughts?
Yes, no, that's wrong. He was begotten in the womb of his mother. Let's go over to Acts 13, 33 and 34. Acts 13, verses 33 and 34. So, now we proclaim to you the good news. What God promised our fathers, God has fulfilled for us, their children, by raising up Jesus. That's not resurrection. King James is misleading you there. Watch out. By producing Jesus, as it's written in the second Psalm, I become your father. And as for the fact that he raised him from the dead, then another quote. So you have to make a distinction. That's not a particularly useful translation, but there's a difference between Acts 13, 33 and 34. 33 is putting Jesus on the human scene. We know when that happened, when he was brought into existence by miracle in Mary. And now the writer of Acts says in verse 34, that was Luke, now, as to the fact that the NASV would be better there if we had it. I don't know if it's possible to get to it. For verse 34, you'll see the difference between raising up and raising up from the dead. Ah, yes, I like that. God, that's what verse is that? 33 or 34?
This is 34.
Okay.
You want, which one do
Okay.
you want?
34 is fine. Let's look at the English Standard Version. As for the fact he raised him from the dead, that's 34. But 33, if you can go find the translations of 33, there should be nothing about raising from the dead. Simply raising Jesus is not raising him from the dead. It's contrasted with verse 34. Verse 34 is raising from the dead. We got a good article at this on our site. F.F. Bruce was entirely in agreement there. So the King James is very misleading in that verse. Raising up Jesus means putting him on the human scene. So he was begotten in the womb of his mother, brought into existence. That's what yenao, begotten, means. Procreated, you said. He began to exist. He was brought into existence, Luke 1:35, in the womb of his mother by an absolute miracle. We don't inquire on how the DNA works or how the genes work. That doesn't matter. Just accept this wonderful miracle wrought in the womb of a young 15-year-old or whatever, however age she was. That's how Jesus began. For that reason precisely, Luke 1:35. For what reason? For the reason of the miracle. Precisely because of that miracle, he became the begotten, procreated, brought into existence Son of God. So he's really human now. He cannot be human if he doesn't begin in the womb of his mother, because all human beings are generated, are brought into existence in the wombs of their mother, with the exception of Adam, of course.
Okay. Yes, a good parallel is verse 22 in Acts 13.
Yeah.
It says, and when God had removed him, he raised up David
Thank you.
to be their king. So the raising up is explained that as
that's right,
putting him on the scene.
On the scene of his. That's good. That's a great question. Yeah.
Let's move on here. A couple more. What is Sir Anthony's view on dinosaurs?
Oh, goodness.
When and why did they exist and were wiped out by the flood or pre-humans?
Yeah, that's beyond my pay grade. I don't know at all. I would imagine they were there before the flood, less so afterwards, but I'll have to rely on the audience to give us an answer to that. I don't know for sure that there was in fact, I'm sure there wasn't a creation of man before Adam and Eve. I would take Genesis 1:1 as follows. In the beginning, God created the sky and the earth, basically. And then you have a 7-day description of that creation. What happened before that, I don't know. I could only speculate.
All right, let's move ahead. Psalm 110,
Oh, yes.
1 has Jesus at the right hand of
Yes.
the Father.
Yes.
Verse 5 would suggest that the Messiah changes position
Yes.
when he is executing his God's
Yeah.
judgment. Is that correct?
No, that's not right because Adonai is not Adoni. The picture is changed there, and there are verses which have the statement that you can have God at your right hand. So the image is changed there. In verse 5, the Lord, that's Adonai, not Adoni. Adonai, the Lord God, as distinct from my Lord in verse 1. So Adonai as it is at the right hand of the Messiah. And you can have that. In fact, you have it in the previous Psalm 109, the very same image, a reversed position, if you like. In Psalm 109 at the end, you have God at the right hand of a believer. At the end of, is it there? There it is. Yes. Got it. He stands at the right hand. God does at the right hand of the needy to save their lives from those who
Yeah.
would condemn them. That's beautiful.
Sorry, Anthony. Yes, so he
Yeah.
does change positions.
Absolutely.
The question is that verse 5 in
Yeah.
Psalm 110 suggests that the Messiah
Yeah.
changes to the position of the right hand. What is it when the Messiah changes position when he is executing God's judgment?
Well, he doesn't know. The Messiah doesn't change any positions. What is changed is that God now is at
Well,
the right hand of the Messiah, Adonai.
yeah. Well, let's get it clear.
Mm.
Throughout the Bible,
Yep.
Jesus is sitting at the right hand of God.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
But here, the Lord is at the right hand of the Messiah. So there is a change
Yeah.
of position.
There is
But
a
the change
change of Lord. Change of Lord is Adonai. That's God. The Lord God
well, the
is at
question
the
has
right
to do
hand.
with the change of position. That's all. That now God is at
Yeah.
the Lord is at the right hand,
Hmm.
God
Hmm.
of the Messiah,
Yeah.
as opposed to normally it's the Messiah at the right hand of God.
That's right.
So yeah.
It's a change of person there. And so it's God who is at the right hand of the Messiah in verse 10, or verse 5 rather. And that's quite a common, I don't have the verse in front of me, but quite common image in the Bible to have God at your right hand, as distinct from Jesus being at the right hand of God. So verse 1 is not the same as verse 5.
Yes, we also have it in at the right there, the cross
Yeah,
reference to
yeah,
Psalm 109:31. You have
got
it
it.
in Psalm 16:8. I
Yes,
have said, Yahweh, the Lord always before me, because
yes,
he is at my right
got
hand.
it,
I will
got it.
not be shaken.
Yep, very good.
And yeah. All right,
I think
let's
that's good.
move
Mhm.
ahead. Let's do a couple more before
Mhm.
we
Okay.
wrap this up. Let me
Yeah.
see. There was a question about, let me find that here, Zechariah.
Uh-huh.
My question is Zechariah 12:10. In most translations, it
Mm.
has Yahweh,
Mm.
the Lord God, being pierced.
Mm.
Wouldn't it be appropriate to actually translate et,
Mm.
the Hebrew et, and use it correctly for grammatical purposes? Not sure what.
Okay. Well, Yahweh is certainly pierced. Not a problem. God was very much pierced when Jesus was pierced. Not that Jesus is God. It doesn't matter. John reads this to be Jesus being pierced. Doesn't matter because God and the Son are one in purpose. And if you say that Jesus is pierced, you could equally well say that God was pierced in the agony of watching his son be killed. So I don't think that's a problem. We'd have to compare John's version with that too. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child. You've got it there. And weep bitterly over him. So God is certainly pierced, but so is Jesus. I don't find that to be difficult.
Yes, so this is a so-called Yahweh text
Mm-hmm.
applied
Yeah,
to the Messiah.
right.
And now it is, John says that these things happen so that the scripture would be fulfilled. That's John 19.
Yep. Keep
Not one
reading.
of his bones will be broken. So that's
Hmm.
from the Isaiah suffering servant, I
Yep,
believe.
absolutely.
And as another scripture says, they will look on the one they have pierced.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, that's
That was
applied now to
Jesus.
the Messiah.
Absolutely. Not a problem because God suffered terribly when his son was pierced. That's good stuff. Okay,
Yes, let me
final one.
yeah, let me just have a look here. Sorry, folks, I'm trying to keep up a lot of comments
Yeah,
and questions.
that's good.
Lori's just clearing up her question. It
Yeah,
was from a not from a JW, was asking that,
yeah.
just a she believes evangelical.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, no, it's great. That
So
was a great point that Laurie had there. Yeah.
let's see. I'm trying to scroll here.
Hmm.
Let's see. All right, let's do this last one, Anthony. What do you make of the idea that Second Temple Judaism espoused a kind of bitheism?
Well, yeah, they talked about a second Yahweh, some of them, but that was never accepted in mainstream Judaism. The idea was there was a second Yahweh, a minor Yahweh. That rabbis never accepted that as central to Judaism, and certainly not two equal gods. It's an attempt to say, well, really, the Jews were sort of Trinitarian. They never were. Everybody knows that Jews were biblical Unitarians always, and we know that Jesus was because of Mark 12:29. A friendly Jew, Mark 12:29, a friendly Jew says to him, "What is the superlatively great commandment, Jesus? I want to know." He was testing him in a friendly way, wanted to see if Jesus was orthodox. And Jesus said, the superlatively great commandment is this. And that is, hear, O Israel, listen, obey. Don't miss this. The Lord our God is one Lord. That's the way the Greek reads there, following the Septuagint Greek. The Lord our God is one Lord. How many lords is that? One. That is pure unitary monotheism. And if you want to follow Jesus and his teachings, highly recommended by 1 Timothy 6:3 and 2 John 7-9, highly recommended to follow the teaching of Jesus, then you're going to latch onto that Jewish Christian, because Jesus quoted it, Jewish Christian creed in Mark 12:29, exactly parallel John 17:3, where Jesus prayed to the Father as the only one who is true God. That should be clear.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
two powers.
Yes, two powers in heaven.
I've
Yep.
I've heard
Mm.
it. I've read
Mhm.
it that many scholars call it the two powers in heaven
Great.
heresy.
Good.
So
Thank you.
it's an actual heresy of
Yep.
early Judaism.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep.
By the way, Jews, or who people we call Jews, but Hebrews, ancient Israelites,
Yes.
they were not exempt from error, folks.
No.
So they had their crazies, as
As we do.
Christianity has their crazies.
Yeah.
Muslims, we know they have
Yeah.
very violent crazies. So every movement has its
Yep.
aberrant
Yep.
under current beliefs.
Yep.
And if you want to comment on this book, which is very,
Mhm.
this book is sort of a favorite of Trinitarians now.
Yes. Yes.
Two
Okay.
Powers in Heaven by Siegel.
Mm.
If you're familiar with this author, Anthony, you want to?
Absolutely. No, I have this book. I've read this book, and there you provided the right phrase: two powers in heaven. But that was never taken to be
Right.
other than a heresy by
Sorry.
Jews. Yeah.
Note the subtitle.
Mm.
Early rabbinic reports about Christianity
Yeah.
and Gnosticism.
Yes.
So
Dangerous.
it's related to what became known as Gnosticism as well.
Exactly right. Yep. We don't want that. We don't want Gnosticism. So that's an early heresy. And Trinitarians would latch onto that and say, well, maybe God is really two. That would contradict Jesus absolutely flat in Mark 12:29 and John 17:3. I repeat, finally, with this then, John 17:3, you, Father, are monos alithos theos. You're the only one who is true God. That should be clear to a child of two. If he's the only one who's true God, then nobody else is the true God except for Jehovah or Yahweh. or Adonai, the Lord God. That
Yep.
makes sense, right?
Thank you,
Mhm.
Anthony. So
Thank
we'll leave
you.
it there.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks to all our questioners. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks, folks. If you
Yep.
want to join us for next time, so we do this every other week, by the way.
Yep. Yep.
So every other week, you can email that. There's the
Hmm.
email. And
Hmm.
just to put a capper on the so-called two powers, Anthony, in heaven.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
the belief was, like you said, of a second Yahweh figure,
Yes. Yes.
which is amazing. But
Yep.
check out this verse. I like this verse, Deuteronomy 4:39.
Yes. Good.
So remember this.
Yes.
Actually, I like the Berean Study Bible. Know
Mm.
therefore this day,
Mm.
take to heart that
Mm-hmm.
the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth below.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other.
Good.
Now, that's Yahweh, God.
Absolutely. No other.
Now, I like it. Take it to the bank,
Yes.
as we say, right? Lay it on your heart. Take
Yes.
it to the bank. This is Jewish
Yes.
Christian monotheism,
Absolutely.
the purest form of it.
Absolutely. Mark
So,
12:29. Wonderful. Very
yes.
easy. Your child, only one. There is no other but he. How many people is he? Answer one. Thousands and thousands of singular personal pronouns describe the one God as a single person. That's the strongest argument against the Trinity, by the way. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. I'll
You.
let you go. Thanks a lot. So, actually, I'm being reminded that in 2 weeks is your debate. So, we will not have, is that right? We will not have Q&A. It will be replaced by your debate. So, once again, kogmissions.com, Tracy Z's ministry we fellowship with, we work alongside with. So it's actually your debate, Anthony. So you got another week to get yourself ready for the debate. Don't get nervous now. Just remember, it's been a while since you debated. So, but yes. So no Q&A. Once again, just go to kogmissions.com. Click on the upcoming events there, as you see, and Anthony's debate will be on. So Q&A will be, let's see, end of the month. So end of February, we'll have another Q&A, God willing, God permitting. Also, remember next week, so it's a action-packed month. Check this out. Next week is my turn once again. I've debated, how many times? I forgot, 6 times or something. Last year was very busy debating season for me. And this season, we're starting with Trinitarian Michael Burgos. And he made some time for us. And that's the only time he had, unfortunately, noon next Friday. So that's noon EST, Eastern Standard Time. That's New York time. If you are on the church channels, you'll be able to see it there. But also, you can go to thehumanjesus.org and also see it there on that site, thehumanjesus.org discussions. So there are a couple of places you can see it in, and also obviously YouTube, our YouTube channel. So let's see if my connection's a bit slow. There it is. So you can watch it there. Did the Son pre-exist eternally? Now, many of our like-minded non-Trinitarians also struggle with this teaching, by the way. So I hope to be able to help many people here, many groups. So both sides of the fence. Some like-minded non-Trinitarians and other obviously Trinitarians. So all right, thank you once again, Anthony. God bless everyone. Keep safe. Remember, keep your mask on. Try to obey the authorities as far as be at peace with all men. So keep safe, keep healthy, and God bless everyone out there.